Hello and welcome to Miss Charlotte Astrology. My name is Miss Charlotte. I'm a full-time working astrologer, and on this channel I analyze the astrological charts of public figures, and they are very often celebrities, and that will be the case today. It's a little bit different because this one's a sad one. I will be analyzing Richard Simmons' chart. So this is going to be a full-on chart read, but it's also going to be a bit of a transit reading. I just want to put it out there that I do not have a definitive like in my analysis and my observation of charts for the years that I've been an astrologer, there is no definitive transit that can tell you that you are going to die. People often ask me, when am I going to die? I'm like, I don't know. That's between you and God. I'm sure there are some astrologers who know how to do that. I'm not that gifted. I'm not that gifted. I'm not the type of person who's, even if I was, I wouldn't tell you when you're going to die. If I had that gift, you know why? Because it freaks people out and it can get in the way of what you're actually meant to be doing, because ultimately we are all going to die. We are all going to turn into dust someday, and we're here for a very short amount of time, some shorter than others, some longer than others, and we need to do our destiny thing. And if we're walking around expecting to die, then we're going to be living in fear, or we're going to be distracted, or we're going to be so self-concerned that we can't look beyond ourselves. Like it's just not our business to know that. That's between you and God. That's why I don't touch that. So what I can tell you is that when it comes to a death transit, it's as if and I said this many times before, it's as if the chart clicks into place. And that's what's happened with Richard Simmons' chart. His chart clicked into place with these transits. So I'm going to take you around the chart and just show you what I see. And hopefully you guys get something out of it. And also, hopefully you're not going to be perpetuating any kind of phobia or fear, or I hope that I don't scare you with any of this, because just because you have Saturn going through your 6th house, like many people do right now, it doesn't mean you're going to die. Saturn going through your 6th house does not mean you're going to die. Okay? Saturn just happened to be in his 6th house. Okay? So, just putting it out there. Now, before I dive in, I just want you guys to know, if you'd like a reading from me, the link is below. I do MP3s. I don't do 60 minutes anymore. I will bring them back when I'm ready. I need to take a break because I'm exhausted from four and a half years of like pretty much no break. Little sabbaticals here and there, but I need to like not read charts for a while, like one-on-one. I can do the MP3s. They're recorded and they're sent to your email, and there's no appointment necessary. So it's just, I need to make this, I've said it in an earlier video, I need to make this business more sustainable, because I haven't been taking care of my health. I've been very busy, and I'm very grateful to all of you. Thank you so much for supporting me. But I will be honest, I've not been well. It's not been a great time for me. So I want to fix that. Okay, so if you'd like to support me, link below, and thank you. Okay, so let's talk about Richard Simmons. So in case you don't know who Richard Simmons is, he was a bit of like a fitness guru in the 80s. Was it the 70s and the 80s? He's an American guy. I knew of him when I was a little girl. Like, I would see him on TV occasionally. I distinctly remember the film, the Eddie Murphy Nutty Professor, and there's a scene where he's exercising and Richard Simmons is on the TV, and Eddie Murphy as Clump is like exercising. That's what I distinctly remember as a child. One of my first not interactions, my first glimpse of Richard Simmons, and he just seemed like such an angel, like such a sweet, fun, happy, outgoing, loud man. And you can see from his chart, he was like a ray of light in the world. And I'm not gonna cry. You know what it is? It's like, it's because some of the things in his chart, we're very different people. We have the same Libra moon, but he's got some placements where I'm like, wow, like he really struggled to be loved and accepted, and he really worked hard to love himself and to show love to others that felt like misfits. So I hate crying. I'm such a Scorpio rising because when I cry, it's like from the depths of my fucking soul, and to put that out on the internet is just like not. Anyway, I'm being vulnerable. I'm being vulnerable with this reading, and I might cry, but here we go. I got to do my fucking job. I've got to do my fucking job, Charlotte. Just get it together. Get it together. Oh, the Celine Dion one. Oh, this one. I cried 2 times already. So Richard was a Libra rising and moon, and you can see the Neptune conjunction with the moon, so we can already see he had a difficult home life. And there's not a lot of nice aspects to it. Like there's a sextile here with Pluto. And then you can see he is a Cancer sun and a Cancer midheaven. So already sun on the midheaven is like fame, someone who is known for what they do. A lot of his identity is wrapped up with his profession. And sun on the midheaven is someone that very often, or they can be tyrannical, but they can also bring a lot of joy. The sun governs Leo, right? So, and also the sun actually rules over his 11th house, because his 11th house is in Leo with Pluto, with Saturn. So that speaks to him. You know, that's a bit of a teacher placement. He's a 9th houser and he's an 11th houser. So he's dealing with a network of people. He's dealing with a lot of people. The 11th house is like publications. It's the internet. It's also television, which was the medium in which he taught people how to exercise. It's the medium which he healed people. And he was a healer. Let's get that straight. You know, he's midheaven in Cancer, I refer to as the mother to all people, similar to like Britney Spears. They refer to her as mother. He is the father. He is almost like a parent for a generation of people who didn't know how to take care of themselves, and he was there showing them how to do that. Like, it's Cancer sun, like, he's a star. And what makes this so painful is that even with his fame, and as beloved as he was with this sun in the 10th, as much joy as he gave the world, look how horribly aspected that sun is. It's squared the moon and Neptune. So there was a battle within himself, and there was this part of him that like wanted to like give joy. Why is this affecting me? Why is it? If I'm gonna get in trouble for being biased while reading, it's now. He just really wanted to like be creative and give back to the world and to help people. And being a public figure was incredibly painful for him. And there's this Neptune square along with the moon. So Neptune governs big things, right? It's kind of like the other generational planets. So if you think of like Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, you know, they all govern things that are outside of ourselves. They're things that we can't control. They're environmental. So Neptune is loss, sacrifice. It's like the Pisces things, you know. It's that healer placement. It's a lovely planet. It's also a very tragic planet. And when you have a big planet like that squaring off, not in a nice placement with the sun, you may be bullied. You may suffer like just a public rejection. As beloved as he was also laughed at, and he hated that. Like, there's just go watch some of the videos, his interviews on YouTube. And he's like, I'm a joke to people. I'm the court jester. And he really took it in his stride, but I think it really hurt. And he was also a fat kid, you know, and I used to be a fat kid, so I completely understand this, where you have to put on the jolly fat person front, and even when you lose all the weight, you still have to put on a jolly fat person front and pretend that you're okay. And you're not. And people still laugh at you, and you're never gonna not be that fat little good boy or that fat little girl, like in your head, that little kid inside of you still is there and feels a lot of pain. And Neptune square the sun, I've got that fucking placement. It's awful with a bunch of other planets. It's just having squares to your sun and nothing nice. Like, he's got no sextiles, he's got no trines. So as popular as he is, which sun in the 10th indicates, he's going to get laughed at the same time. He's a joke. And he sacrificed Neptune on the ascendant. People with that placement, they get projected on a lot. They can be very polarizing at the same time. But they're also people who can be incredibly intuitive and people that can observe the pain in other human beings. It's a bit of a psychic placement. Like, the ascendant is your face, right? It's how you meet the world, like how you walk through this world and how people see you. So if you've got the planet of sacrifice and suffering and no boundaries, people really, I think, messed with his boundaries. They really projected on him, and he was bullied, and it's really awful. Also, the conjunction with the moon at home, there was a lack of boundaries. Was he born into poverty? Neptune is that, like, homelessness. It's a bit of a homeless placement. He's at least seen a lot of suffering. He grew up in New Orleans, right? He was from Louisiana. I've been to New Orleans. It's a beautiful place. It's a very harsh place to grow up in. So I think he saw just a lot of suffering. And I think the moon Neptune conjunction could be potentially a bit of a hedonist as well. Like, he was an addict of food as a young boy as a way to cope. He's a very peaceful, loving person. All he ever wanted in his relationships was, to have, like, I'm a Libra moon, like, all you want is peace in the home. And very rarely did he get that. I mean, look at all these squares. I mean, he's got square with Mercury as well, which is a struggle with the body. He's had, and it's not, he was quite overweight. He lost a lot of weight, got very healthy. And then in the last 10-15 years of his life, I think his body started to fail him. His Mercury is at a critical degree 0. So if we got any people here that are really, really good at numerology, I'm alright at it, but if anyone who knows what 0 is, it is like a critical degree. Yes. But Mercury governs, like, the body and the mind, and it's at a 0 degree in Cancer, so it's in the same sign as his midheaven. So that's the teacher. So if you have a mercurial midheaven, like a Gemini, Virgo midheaven, or if you've got Mercury on your midheaven, you will be expected to be a public speaker and a public teacher, a teacher or a public speaker. It doesn't, even if you are an introvert, which he naturally was. I know a lot of people perceive Richard Simmons as someone who was quite loud and let's go and 1, 2, 3, 4. He was, because that was his job. But who he actually was behind the facade is very different. Like, his 4th house is Capricorn. Like, I think he did a lot of preparation at home. I think he had to, like, really psych himself up in order to be Richard Simmons, so it's not easy down here. The 4th house is where you rest your head. It's your family. It's, and he's got no planets here. The moon, which actually is associated with the 4th house, is over here in the 1st house, meaning he had to protect himself a lot as a child. The moon on the ascendant makes you very warm and kind and compassionate. Neptune with the moon, like, just, he's a very psychic man, a very true empathic man. And can I just say, he wasn't the type he wasn't the type of man that would go around being like, I'm such an empath, I'm so empathic, I'm so, like, people go around talking about how empathic they are when really they're just spiritual narcissists. He was a true empath in that he never announced it. He just did the work that demonstrated that empathy. He worked with people that would be laughed at. He worked with fat people. He worked with disabled people. He worked with elderly people. And because that was a lot, that was his following. Those were the people that were primarily tuning into his TV shows, his workout shows, his workout programs. They were the ones that identified with him. Hot fit people and gym rats didn't, because he's kind of nerdy, he's kind of weird, and he's kind of, no one knows what his sexuality was. He never publicly dated anyone, but he's very gay coded, like gay man coded. So he's going to appeal to a lot of women, and he feels very safe. So yeah, and I think because he wasn't a masculine gym rat kind of guy with big muscles, I think there was he turned into a bit of or they tried to turn him into a bit of a cartoon, something to be laughed at, like he said, the court jester. And I think he played up to that. You know, when people bully you for something, you just become more of that thing as a way to own it. That's what he did. But he's such a sweet person, like a very kind, empathic, like Cancer sun and moon in Libra. He knows what people want, and he knows how to give the public what they want. And I think his greatest love was the public. Let's go to his personal love life, because he never dated anyone publicly. He never had well, as far as anyone knows, he never had a partner. I'm wondering if he was. I do wonder if he was gay. Like, it's none of our freaking business, really. Like, but it's very gay coded. You know what I mean? Like his bright colors, and it's very like. If we're gonna talk about stereotypes, he would be that stereotype. His sexuality was made fun of. He never wanted to talk about it. I feel a little bit bad talking about it now, but I just wanted to like point that out, that even his sexuality was something that was held against him, even though he never discussed it. His Venus is retrograde, which is not an easy placement for love. So if you think of a retrograde planet, it moves inward. It's hard to move forward in that area of your life. It doesn't mean you can't find love. It doesn't mean you're going to be alone forever or anything like that. But love is hard. Learning to love yourself is hard. And learning to love another person on an intimate level is hard. And I think with him being a ninth house Venus, it was easier for him to love the public. I think that's where he felt safe. He felt safe teaching people, because the ninth house is a learning and teaching house. Gemini is also an intellectual sign, a learning sign, and he was a teacher. His heart is in a teacher sign, in a teacher house. He gives me kind of like grand high priest energy as well. You know, the ninth house is also belief systems and religion. Not that he was a religious figure, but it was borderline cultish, and I don't mean that in the dark way. I mean that, you put this introverted Cancer man who is insecure and empathetic and kind and wants to love the whole world. You put him on a stage with 1,000 people, and he will own the room in his hand. Like, he will own that room. It's a little bit. He gives me a little bit of that. I don't know, like Princess Diana had, and I think it's a cancer thing. It's like the humanitarian. But his humanitarianism came through his fantastic communication style and his ability to connect with people that felt so disconnected, because he felt disconnected. I do think if he had a love life, and he obviously didn't talk about it, I think he had he didn't have like a type. He's got Uranus very close. He's got Uranus in a conjunction here, so whatever his type was, it would have changed. Uranus governs Aquarius, and it's chaotic, and it's like very progressive. And I think if he were to fall in love with someone romantically, and hopefully he had that, and he didn't talk about it, but I would like, it would have been nice to know that he had, some kind of love. It would have been someone who was maybe a foreigner, or someone who just had a completely different background to him, someone maybe a lot older or a lot younger. He was probably very attracted to intellectuals. I'm also wondering if he wasn't romantic with anyone, if he was literally just asexual. I could see that with this placement, potentially asexual. Again, that was fine. A lot of people loved him. He had a lot of friends. I think he made friends with a lot of his students, but towards the end of his life, his world got quiet. It got more stable. His routine was much more. I think his routine was very strict, and one of his last interviews, he said, "I'm just working out, I'm staying in." He had a problem with his knee. I think he had a knee replacement, and he needed another one, but he didn't want it, so he was physically bound. And I'm wondering if he gained weight or something, like his body changed, and that's why he hid away. He didn't want the world to see him a certain way. Yeah, so I'm wondering about that. The Pluto and Saturn in the 11th house. So Pluto was that transformation. The 11th house is the public. What did he transform? He transformed the public physically, at the very least, like physically, spiritually. He really like helped people get their shit together, and he motivated people to heal their bodies, transform their bodies. And Pluto in the 11th could also be, it's pretty well aspected Pluto, but it could indicate some kind of disgrace or embarrassment in the public eye, which did happen, not his own fault. It was more like the media bullying him. Pluto in the 11th can be a rejection by the public or the media as well. Not an easy placement. Saturn could also be indicate trouble with reputation. But Saturn is pretty well aspected though. So Saturn is the planet that like is associated with the 10th house. So he makes money from his network. He genuinely loves people, but he also makes money from people. You remember that, okay? Saturn is a bit of a capitalistic energy, right? And Pluto also governs money. So these two money planets are in the 11th house of the public. So while he's very adored and he transforms people, there's a genuine humanitarian energy here, but it's also a business. So that is there. His Mars is in Virgo. That's also it's really harshly aspected, and it's in the 12th house. So I'm wondering if there was a bit of, he had some vices. People with Mars in the 12th house, they can really have vices. They can be vilified very easily. Their sexuality, because Mars governs sex, right? So their sexuality, their physical body doesn't belong to them. And it's almost like it belongs to the world. And that's why a lot of people over his lifetime were wondering, what's his sexuality? Is he gay? Is he straight? Is he bi? What's going on? So it was all up for discussion. He never addressed it. He's got that Britney Spears Mars and Rising too. Really interesting. I know they're very different people, but it's interesting that they're both known for their bodies and their physical movements, and how good they were at those things, like really good at contorting their bodies, but their bodies didn't belong to them. They belonged to the public, which consumed the media in which they did those things. So it's really interesting. It's harshly aspected. I mean, Uranus is exactly it's an exact square. Uranus at 27 degrees. You're squaring Mars. That could also be trouble, difficulty with the body, like lots of maybe like injuries. I don't know if he was very public about it, but I'm wondering if he had a lot of injuries over his time of being, like a fitness person, like his body gave out eventually. There's also Jupiter square Mars, Jupiter retrograde too. That's disappointing husbands or disappointing marriage or disappointing, maybe not even, he didn't get married, did he? But like there's some disappointment around marriage, lack thereof. His personal relationships, he's a good person, a lovely person. But his relationships were difficult. Like his Venus is sextiled Saturn. It's not the sexiest sextile. I mean, it's good. I think he had some real true friends. I don't think he died alone or anything. I think he had friends around him. I think he had like a tight knit group of people, which is, which is a wonderful thing to have. I don't think he died alone. I think he died with a few really good people around him, which, but yeah, Saturn, sextile Venus, like over time you learn to love yourself. Over time, you find the right person or the right people for you. You don't need a large group of people to love you. He had a large group of people that loved him, but I'm talking more about his intimate sphere. I think it was a very small number of people. What is this? Saturn and Pluto do have big blue lines, big trines with that Jupiter. Jupiter in the 3rd house. And remember, the 3rd house is that Gemini house. 3rd house is like the small things, like the small movements, like learning your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s, and it also is also one of the houses along with the 6th house, because they're both mercurial houses that are associated with like physical movement. He traveled a lot. There's Jupiter. Jupiter is long distance travel, but third house is small trips. I feel like he just traveled a lot within America. Like he stayed within his country a lot of the time, but he traveled a lot in that time. And because it trines Pluto and Saturn, he made money from that movement. He makes money from travel, which is, yeah, good. Very good. And he's got Chiron in the second house. I mean, that could also be like, that's the wound around intimacy and relationships, but it's also someone that makes money from healing. Another placement indicates money from healing. Chiron's at 18 degrees, which is the sick Virgo degree, yeah? Dealing with sick people. Trining that sun. There should be a big blue line between Chiron and the sun. But healing people he's got that humanitarian aspect. If you've got Chiron trining the sun, or if you're Princess Diana, Neptune trining the sun, you're going to be loved for being that humanitarian in Princess Diana's case, and for Richard Simmons, a healer. That's what he was adored for. Everybody adored him because he was a high priest of healing. But yeah, no, this is I don't want to be like, oh, he was lonely and had a horrible life. He had a fantastic life and he made the world a better place. He made it better and brighter, and he was a great teacher. And, wherever he is, I hope he's happy. By the way, I just wanted to point this out because now we have to get into transits. Pluto's just left his fourth house. He became reclusive very early on in the Pluto Capricorn transit. So Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, and he went missing. Well, not went missing, but he became a recluse around 2013. So 4 or 5 years after that. So it's interesting that Pluto, as soon as Pluto pretty much entered his fourth house, he shut himself off and he went indoors. And as soon as Pluto leaves Capricorn, he passes away. It's just something that I noticed. I'm sure that there are people, Libra risings with Capricorn fourth houses, that have this transit that have not done that, okay? I'm speaking to his chart only. Please do not project onto this reading. I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm sure that the Pluto going through your fourth house for 16 years played out in a different way. Okay, I'm just talking about him. Now, what I noticed, which was so interesting about the transit when he died, this is for today. He died like yesterday, but the moon was in Libra, so he has lunar return. The south node was I know it's not here. I know you can't see it. You can see the north node here, right? The north node is at 10 degrees in Aries. So what does that mean? The south node, what is being released, is at 10 degrees in Libra on his moon, on his Neptune, releasing his life force. Libra moons, by the way, we're going through it right now. We're letting go of people. We're letting go of, well, it's all about letting go with the Libra placements. And he literally just let go. He literally let go. He's like, I have to leave the world now. Peace. So yeah, just an interesting transit. Make that what you make of that what you will, but it's the release of the domestic sphere. It's the release of connections. It's a release of burden because his moon is so burdened. He has a very heavy, truly empathic heart. And I think when you spend your time, spend your life healing people and teaching people, you hold on to their energy sometimes. You really, really do. Not that I compare in any way to what he's doing. I'm just like, I was a teacher, and I still am in a lot of ways. My moon's in 11th house, but it is very heavy to absorb everyone's emotions. It's a very heavy feeling, and he just had to let it go. He dedicated his whole life to other people, and in the last part of his life, he dedicated it to himself, and he needed to because it was making him sick. Healers get sick. They don't heal themselves, they heal other people because a majority of the time, if you've got a gift, if you've got an intuitive gift, if you have a gift for healing or transforming others, it very, very rarely, and there's exceptions, it very rarely is it for you. Your gift isn't for you, right? There's a reason why psychics a lot of the time can't predict lottery numbers because the gift isn't for you. It's for other people. And he had a profound understanding of that. And that's why this introverted man had to become this loud, boisterous teacher, healer, a man that transformed the bodies and minds of his students, and he just had to let go. So this North Node in Taurus is stable. I think I don't know how, I don't know exactly what his finances were. I feel like with his North Node in Taurus, he had money. He bought a really nice house, and he just probably made some wise investments. Hopefully he seemed to have been okay. I mean, he had a mansion towards the end, didn't he? And then, it's in the 8th house, and I mean, that's an intimacy house. It is a bit alone. I think he had people around him, but yeah, I mean, I could argue his destiny was to get married but that didn't happen. Sometimes, North Node in the 8th house is literally just rest, and it's about finding intimacy with others. Yes, doesn't always mean marriage, but intimacy with yourself. And he had not a lot, but he had quite a few intimate friends who were around in the end. So yeah, his destiny was to be stable. He had to come away from this South Node. His South Node is with this Chiron in the 2nd house. So he spends the first bit of his life, his career, earning money and helping people. He's in that South Node with Chiron. I'm hurt. I know what it's like to be fat and to be unhealthy. So I'm going to transform myself, and then I'm going to put that out into the world and help other people do what I did. That's a very Chiron South Node 2nd house, making money from healing people. And then eventually he's like, I have to just let that go and focus on myself. So yeah. And I think he continued to exercise, but I do think that I wonder if his physical body just changed a lot within that time. He didn't want the world to see him. He didn't want the world to see him that way. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of transits going on. Yeah, lunar, the moon was in Libra when he died. The South Node was exactly at 10 degrees. Lilith had just entered Libra as well. Lilith is the dark feminine. It's not a big deal, but it's a malefic energy. Mercury sitting on his Saturn. I mean, Mercury is also a planet that governs, health, right? I talked about that earlier, and it's moving over his Pluto and his Saturn, Pluto's a death planet. So the planet of the body is moving over the planet of death in his chart. Obviously, it's the 11th house, so people are going to be talking. But Mercury's moving through the top of your chart, 10th, 11th. People might be talking about you, which is indeed happening right now. Venus moving through here is people going to talk about you affectionately. They're going to be like, Venus is nice going through a public house. You might get a promotion, or you might have people favor you, which both of these things have happened. And he had his birthday. I hope he had a lovely birthday. Happy birthday, Richard. Happy birthday. Yeah, Jupiter's moving through here. Mars moving through. That's not just, hey, if Mars is moving through your 8th house, don't freak out, okay? But, Mars governs the 8th house. It's one of the planets that governs the 8th house, and it's moving through here. 8th house is associated with death and legacy. So that's a bit of a theme here with this transit. It's with Uranus as well. God, I'm staying in tomorrow. I'm going to stay in for a little while, because this Mars conjunction with Uranus, literally, it's popping off today. Popped off. You know what I'm talking about. You guys are watching the news. We'll talk about Donald Trump later. It's just kind of wild right now. The transits are really, really wild. And lastly, Saturn is moving through his 6th house of health. I would normally tell people, if they're going through this transit, you have to take care of your routines and take care of your health, get off the sugar, stop smoking, that kind of transit. He's got nothing bad in here. He was quite healthy. It's just that his little body gave out on him. He was just working so hard, and he needed knee replacements. There's a lot of wear and tear on his body that eventually accumulated, built up, and eventually, of course, he passed. But anyway, I've been talking a long time about this. I can't believe I started off crying. Forgive me. I was projecting a lot of my own insecurities and my own experiences onto this a little bit, because, and that's why I wanted to do this, because I understand, you know, just watching those interviews and him like crying, like just like, I'm just a joke to everyone. I'm just a joke. And being a fat kid, he was also a joke. You know, you felt like if you've ever been a fat kid, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope that this is, I know it's a bit of a sad reading, but it's a happy one, because Richard Simmons lived a triumphant life. His life is a triumph. So thank you, Richard Simmons. I'm going to cry. I hate crying. Anyway, Scorpio rising things. I'm just like, my eyes are burning red right now. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and have a great day. Bye.